Welcome everyone to another episode of For the Fans. We are moving days, moving times. Still working on the time frame, but day is Saturday. We're having a little bit earlier than what we normally do. It's not as late for people watching on the East Coast. And with today, we're also getting interesting because we already have the first game. We get that first Thursday game out of the way going into the week. So it's very interesting to see how everything plays out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. It's a little wonky for us because obviously we basically already have one game down. That we're really not going to, do this like this full comprehensive report when it comes to predictions or anything like that. But yeah, but at least we get to do all the others. You know what I mean, Shane?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a very good time, and we always do the Thursday, and now we just do the Thursday on the Saturday, so we get to review one game that has already happened for this week and kind of see how some teams stack up, but we also get every other game for the rest of the week.
Yes, this is true.
But let's get started with this episode. Moving on to week 3, we have a little bit of news, starting with some fines that coaches are receiving, not players. My bad.
Yeah. And it's probably this has been kind of a big thing that's been going on recently. We touched on it a little bit last week how the NFL warned coaches, specifically Sean McVay, of hey, you need to wear your masks like the entire time during the game, otherwise we're going to fine you. And I guess the message didn't really necessarily get all the way across the board in the NFL because Broncos coach Vic Fangio, Niners coach Kyle Shanahan, and Seahawks coach Pete Carroll were all fined 100K, and their teams were also fined 250K for failing to properly wear masks during games. I don't know if the Saints and the Raiders were fined, but I know that Coach Sean Payton and Coach John Gruden, they were also fined. I believe it was 100K for failing to wear their masks at all times during the course of the game. Shane, what are our thoughts on that?
You know, I just have one thought. I'm surprised that Bill Belichick isn't added to this list because there were memes of like how he was wearing his mask where it's like over his nose but not his mouth, and it kind of just looks like he took a party hat from his head and just put it over his nose. So with it, we do need to be careful wearing the mask. I will say, I'm just very personally kind of torn because the players aren't wearing it anyways.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like they're right next to the players the entire time. The players aren't wearing them to begin with. I mean, I guess it helps because the players are actually playing, but and the coaches aren't. But I don't know. I think it's a very interesting situation. I understand why they're being encouraged to wear masks. Do I think that they should be getting fined like $100,000 or $250,000? No. I think they should at least drop the fine down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they could be
I
just doing that big amount to get to as like a scare tactic to get everyone else to wear their mask.
That's what I was gonna say. It was just a tactic to get the message across. Because the thing is some. I think I may have mentioned it on this show once. One of my jobs is I teach music. I teach a marching band at a local high school. And when our kids are on the field, we don't have them wear their masks. But us as staff members, us as teachers, we need to have our masks on at all times. So it's a similar situation. I think it's just very interesting looking at it from the perspective of the NFL because obviously they're on a bigger stage, they're playing on live television. It just really seems to be. I can't help but notice. I feel like the coaches who are kind of like already caught on TV, they're the ones who are really getting pegged for it. Yes, I understand that Bill Belichick kind of wore his mask like an idiot, but at least he was wearing it. You know what I
True.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's something I think that's gonna have to be addressed later on, because like going to the store, like you even see people wearing the face shields, like Andy Reid did in the season opener. So I wonder how like that's going to come into play and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's move on to our other news, which is kind of the only other notable thing other than the onslaught of injuries that have happened recently, is that with with the onslaught of injuries, the Denver Broncos assigned former Jaguars quarterback Blake Bortles as the starter while Drew Lock recovers. Um,
I gotta hear your reaction on this, man.
you know, in all honesty, I think Bortles was a good character Do I think he was the best player? No. Do I think that he will be a solid player? Not necessarily, but I'm glad to see that he is getting a chance again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to have a situation like Ryan Tannehill did last year, where he goes from the Dolphins to the Titans and has a revival career where he becomes a starting quarterback again and basically a star. Helps carry his team to the AFC Conference Final. But I think this is at least a decent opportunity for Bortles to kind of cultivate that, maybe get another shot at the starting job, and we'll see what happens as far as Drew Lock's injury goes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shane. How tall is Bortles? Does he fit John Elway's weird quarterback requirements?
What's his quarterback requirements?
It's basically where it's like the quarterback's got to be like 6'4" or something like that.
Bortles is 6'5".
Yep. Okay. All right. He fits the. Still.
I mean,
Yeah, like, all of the Broncos quarterbacks that John Elway selects, like they're all like that. Keenum, Manning, Osweiler, like they've all been that way. Flacco, Drew Lock is that way. I just find it very entertaining.
yeah. I mean, I'm very interested to see how this is gonna play out because, in all honesty, for the longest time, the Jaguars probably had one of the worst offensive playbooks and like offensive decisions, where it was basically run the ball up the middle and call it a day, and that's how 80% of the games were, especially with Fournette there, because Fournette was there basically the whole time Bortles was there. So,
Yeah.
seeing how he's going to be in a different team with a different offensive playbook, he may get more chances to air out the ball. So, we might get to see a different side of Blake Bortles than what we saw with him as the Jaguars.
It is possible. I would agree.
So I'm keeping him under the radar in the sense of where I don't think he's going to break out, but I think he's going to be an interesting player to watch.
I would agree. I mean, I guess we'll just kind of need to see what happens when the Broncos when they play and they put him on the field.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see about that. But that's all for our news. So let's move on to our the wows and the woes segment. And I'm just gonna go ahead and show everybody just the different scores of last week's games while we go into this.
Yeah. Starting off with the wows, this is going to be the biggest wow that really happened during the course of week 2, Shane. I almost didn't. I was debating whether or not we should put this on the wows or the woes. The reason that I wanted to put on the woes is because the Falcons are just being the Falcons as usual. But I think we should at least kind of give it to the Dallas Cowboys to be able to be down by so many points and to win against the Falcons in dramatic fashion, being down by double digits most of the game and come back to win 40-39 in overtime. I find that incredibly impressive and almost a little sickening for Falcons fans. It's almost like Super Bowl 51 all over again.
It is the return of Super Bowl 51. Has this massive lead. Everybody thinks the game's over, and then at the very end, they lose. It said this time they lose by literally 1 point.
Yeah, and again, it was mostly because in Super Bowl 51, the Patriots got the ball first and they couldn't stop them, and they drove down and got a touchdown, and that was it.
Yeah, I just feel bad for the Falcons at this point now.
We'll have to see if they can rebound this week. I think they might. I think they're going to get their opportunity, but we'll get to that.
Definitely. But let's move on to our next one, which is Tannehill takes a big hit. He got hit hard by the Jaguars defense, but he was able to do what he needed to do and lead the Titans to victory. Made me sad, but it was honestly a good, hard-fought game. I really liked watching the game all throughout. They got a good, strong lead early, and then the Jaguars started coming back, and then it basically came down to like the last 5-10 minutes, which I think just makes for a good football game in of itself.
I would definitely agree. I think it was just very impressive for him to get hit hard by that defense, but he still manages to throw for a touchdown pass that eventually leads to that Titans victory.
Yep.
Speaking of talented quarterbacks, our next one, I mean, we're probably going to be talking about this guy a lot as we go throughout the season, but Russell Wilson, he throws 5 touchdown passes against the New England Patriots to get a 35-30 victory on Sunday Night Football. It was a very impressive showing by Wilson. Just one of those really talented scrambling QBs that we see out there. the only thing that I found a little odd about the night is like in his first drive, he ends up throwing a pick six. But other than that, he managed to rebound from that, and he got a win against the Patriots. Maybe that makes up for some redemption against the interception in that game and the Malcolm Butler interception in Super Bowl 49.
I mean, I say that would. I think Russell Wilson's honestly one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. So he has been really on top of everything so far this season.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. For the Green Bay Packers rushed for a career-high 168 yards and scored 3 touchdowns, including a 75-yard touchdown against a listless Lions team. Now, we do have to understand, I should point out that the Lions were actually leading against the Packers for a while, and then they just disintegrated after that. I mean, the final score was 42-21, I believe, was the final score. All I have to say about this, Shane, I'm curious to see how the Packers are going to do moving on from this, because I feel like the Packers are always doing very, very well in the regular season, but they're that team that just can't seem to carry it in the postseason. That's just kind of my thought process when it comes to the Packers. Fantastic team overall in the regular season, but once we get into the postseason, they just end up just getting killed by some other team, like the Niners last year.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's shaping out this season so far is that I feel like the Niners are starting to become an irrelevant factor. I think they might have that Super Bowl hangover, and half of their team being injured definitely isn't giving them any favors.
Oh.
I think the Packers are starting to turn into the team to beat in the NFC right now, other than the Seattle Seahawks.
I would say it's between them and the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I think those are two really, really tough teams.
Yeah.
Another team that I think we should at least take a look at, though, is the Rams. I mean, Jared Goff seems to be kind of rebounding from a bad previous season. You know, Shane, last year we kind of talked about, you know, the two quarterbacks that were obviously the most disappointing last season were Jared Goff and Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky is obviously still not really all that impressive, but Goff was a little bit of a surprise for how downhill he went last year, considering he had gone to the Super Bowl the year before. So it almost kind of looks like he is doing a little bit of a rebound here, tosses 3 touchdown passes in a victory against the Eagles.
My main question with Jared Goff right now is, do you think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks where he has like a really, really good season and then next season he's bad and then he goes back to being really good and he just alternates every single year? Or do you think he's going to steadily progress and stay on top of his game like he did the year they went to the Super Bowl and what he's doing so far?
I think it's going to be more of a case of he just kind of just had a rough year. But not everything was wrong with Goff. To be honest, I think there was just a lot of pressure on the Rams organization itself with all of the stars that they got. I think they had some chemistry issues. Todd Gurley was having issues during that season. I don't think we can place all the blame on Goff. Yes, he didn't have a very good season. But other than that, the Rams have been performing very well as a team ever since they got Jared Goff as their quarterback. So I think that was just a weird year last season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I still have my doubts, I think is what I'm saying. Is that there's still a little bit of cautious with it.
Yeah.
And just wanting to, like, watch it more closely. So maybe it's, like, something that we just have to sit back and let it play out a little bit longer and see how he develops more into the future.
Yes, I would agree.
All right. Let's move on to Justin Herbert, and the Bulls almost shot the reigning Super Bowl champions, which, honestly, I think when we were talking about this game before and we made our predictions, I think we both expected the Chiefs to kind of blow out the Chargers, even with it being a division rival, and those games usually go pretty close. The Chargers were leading and being pretty dominant 80% of the game, and this game even went into overtime.
This game came down to a field goal kick, which, might I add, is probably a lot easier for kickers to do these days when they don't have fans yelling.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's not the point, though. What's important to point out in this, like when we're talking about this, is Justin Herbert. This was his first start. He's a rookie quarterback, just covering for Tyrod Taylor, who had like a little bit of like a punctured lung or some rib issues or something like that. I can't remember the specifics.
It was a punctured lung by the Chargers team doctor.
Right. Justin Herbert had a really impressive first start. I mean, he almost beat the champs, Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean he was still he still had like some mistakes here and there, but overall he threw 311 yards, one touchdown, one interception, 22 for 33. For a rookie in their debut, that is really solid.
I would say so. I think the question that I have for you is, if he were given the chance to start again, do you think there's a possibility that he could be a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I think he's a candidate. I'm already like just watching some of the rookies play so far. I have a few candidates because Joe Burrow is gonna be put on that list already just because he was the #1 overall pick. Justin Herbert really impressed me with his debut. James Robinson, the rookie running back for the Jaguars, he has been a machine lately, so I would say that he's another one of my offensive rookie of the year personally. CeeDee Lamb's been doing pretty good. I just don't think that he's done enough to fully shine compared to like these three so far.
I think he could have an opportunity to kind of build that.
The Cowboys are definitely getting him involved and he's doing stuff, but I just don't think that he's getting enough targets for him to really like beat out these three.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to see. He also has to be a starter in order to do that, and Coach Lynn has made it clear that Tyrod Taylor is still the starter.
Yeah, which is very interesting. I mean, I'm very curious because we had Tyler start the first game. He didn't do that great. We had Herbert come in this game, and they almost beat the Chiefs with him. And Taylor's going to go back to being the starter. I'm kind of curious now to see how long they're going to keep having Taylor be the starter, or they're going to be like, no, we're throwing Herbert back in. People liked him. He did good. We're just going to roll with the rookie at this point.
We would have to see. I don't know if that's going to happen just yet. I think that just is kind of – we just have to see how the next few games go for the Chargers.
Yep. But let's move on to our last wow, which is the Raiders' Dartside debut. Man, that stadium looked pretty awesome, and what a time to get a solid win against not only just a win, but a win against a Saints team, which you and me have talked about probably being one of the most dominant teams in the NFL. And it wasn't even like a really, really close game. Like it was 10 points, which is still like fairly close, but Raiders kind of walked away with this game.
They did. The reason we call it the Dark Side debut is, I guess, because Raiders owner Mark Davis has called the new Allegiant Air Stadium the Death Star, which I find very humorous. But hey, whatever. It happens in Vegas. What I found really interesting here is, I will give the Raiders credit for how well they performed. I think Derek Carr had a good. This is a good run for him. He scored 3 touchdowns. But I also feel like the Saints, who we had picked to be the Super Bowl champions when we did our preseason playoff analysis, I feel like they're kind of lacking. I feel like Drew Brees is obviously not being Drew Brees. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but we'll give it to the Raiders to say, hey, yeah, you beat the Saints, but could there be more going on there?
Yeah, and we also got to remember, the Saints did not have Mike Evans that game.
Michael Thomas.
Yeah. My bad. It's been a long day. It's a Saturday.
I hear ya. I know.
Michael Thomas. He didn't have Michael Thomas. He didn't have his #1 receiver, which, I mean, as I saw this past Thursday, not having your #1 wide receiver can really do a lot of damage to quarterbacks, and basically they lose their go-to option, and then defenses can relax a little bit more and kind of just spread out a little bit more instead of having to put more pressure on one specific person.
This is true. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Saints in our woes category.
So let's move on to our woes then. And we're going to start with the Broncos' struggle to get back on the horse, which is really, really just rough. They lost their starting quarterback in Drew Lock, who we talked about a little bit last season, the few games that he played. He looked really, really solid, and we really liked him for the start. But that injury, he's going to be out for 3 to 5 weeks, which is concerning. And then Courtland Sutton is out for the rest of the year with an ACL tear. A lot of injuries are taking out a lot of players this season.
For those who maybe weren't paying too much attention during this past week, If we start talking a lot about torn ACLs, no, it's not deja vu. There are literally just that many players who have torn their ACLs this week.
Speaking of another one that tore their ACL, just to throw it on here, and I know we don't have it. Thursday night, Leon Jacobs, linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars, also tore his ACL and is out for the season.
And obviously, when you have a torn ACL, it's going to put you out for quite some time. Two other players, we'll just kind of cover them really quickly, who also have torn ACLs. Giants running back Saquon Barkley. He tore his ACL against the Bears, and he is going to be out all season.
Bye-bye Giants season.
What did you say?
Bye-bye Giants season.
Nothing like there was much one to begin with.
True,
I'm going to get into that. Another player who also tore his ACL is Nick Bosa, the reigning defensive rookie of the year, which he's out for the season, and that's not good for the Niners defense. He was a big part of that. Before we get into more of the Niners fans being nervous about all of their players getting injured, going back to Saquon Barkley, Shane, I think this might be basically the early death sentence for the Giants, and I think they're going to be in the run for the first-round pick.
Oh, I think they might be getting Trevor Lawrence, especially if Daniel Jones has a bad season. I think that they should probably grab Trevor Lawrence while they can.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to say, but yeah, I really just don't see how well things are going to be going for the Giants now that really their biggest star, which is Saquon Barkley, is out, and basically all these weapons that they've talked about giving access to Daniel Jones, they're not all on the field at the same time due to these injuries.
Yeah. Speaking of injuries, we have Jimmy G, Raheem Mostert also on that list, and I think there was another two 49ers players. I just don't know who they were.
A lot of 49ers players who were injured.
I think Richard Sherman got injured, if I remember right.
Yeah. And Eric Armstead, I believe, D Ford. There's a list. There's a list.
Basically, a lot. I would say probably about a third of the 49ers starting roster got injured, with their starting quarterback, their starting running back, who was honestly, I had Raheem Mostert on my fantasy team. He was giving me so many points, and that really bummed me out when he got injured. And I'm like, wait, why am I not getting points anymore? I'm like, oh, he got injured. Well, that's bad.
Yeah. It's just, it was really difficult the fact that we had to kind of see that happen.
Yeah.
That, some of the players, especially talented players, are going down with these injuries. And, it was interesting because the Niners were kind of blaming the poor quality of the MetLife Stadium for being the reason why they had so many injuries, which is bad news for them because guess what? They got to play in that stadium again tomorrow playing against the Giants. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they said that the place is safe, but yeah, I don't know.
Let's move on to a few more injuries, though.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, this next one is McKay. You really should have drafted Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, man, dude.
Enlighten us.
Well, obviously Christian McCaffrey is running back that I had taken because I know he's doing well, but unfortunately he has a high ankle sprain that could lead to him being out for several weeks. McCaffrey wants to get back to playing soon, but I just don't know if that's a really good idea to throw him in there. The Panthers are already 0-2. They're really not getting off to the good start that we'd kind of hoped they were going to get. And with McCaffrey going down, I think that's just going to further take their chances. If anything, I would say McCaffrey should stay out as long as he could and just chalk this up to another lost season. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, to add even more injuries, so you drafted Christian McCaffrey. Literally, after week 2, half of my fantasy team basically went injured to either being out, because I had Cortland Sutton, I had Josh Lambo, both of them got injured. I had Raheem Mostert. Basically, all of my players got injured. I'm like, well, time to start going around trying to get what I can. So, Lambo's injured, center Brandon Linder's injured, a few other players from a bunch of other teams are also injured after week 2.
It's a tough one, man. It really is.
What's sad to think, I think this season's literally, the playoff teams are going to be whatever team can stay the healthiest.
Well, and that's part of the problem that I've discussed with some people is because they didn't get a preseason, because they didn't get the best time to kind of basically get back in shape after being out for a bit because of the shutdown due to the pandemic. Yeah, they're not the healthiest, and they're getting hurt. And yeah, I think you're right, Shane. It almost maybe come down to survival of the fittest.
Yep, and we'll just have to see how, I guess, players end up being non-injured. But
Uh, uh,
moving on from that, we're not going to talk about the injured, but it looks like that they're injured, with Kirk Cousins throwing 3 interceptions against the Colts, and the Minnesota offense looked absolutely abysmal, where the Vikings aren't really injured, but they are looking like... So, the way I see it is that the Vikings are looking on how, like, their team is looking like on how I feel like the 49ers team actually looks, where a third of your starters are completely injured and out, except the Vikings don't have anybody out.
Yeah, well, let me put it to you this way, Shane. I'm thinking if things continue to go this way, like for the Vikings offense, the Lions look like garbage. I'm still not sold on my own Chicago Bears team. I'm thinking.
I think that the Packers have an easy run of your division. I think
the Packers are going to clinch the NFC North by week 7. Like,
sheesh.
We won't go on too much on that. I think there's just obviously a lot of improvement needs to happen, especially from Minnesota, when Minnesota was expected to still be a strong team, whereas we weren't really expecting that from the Bears or the Lions. And they got to do that. And I once again reaffirm my statement that if going out to an 0-2 start for the Vikings, that doesn't bode well for Mike Zimmer as the coach there, because you and I have talked about, well, how much longer is he really going to be there?
Yeah, and it's something that I'm very curious about, because we have seen the Vikings in the playoffs for the past few seasons. So is it really get rid of the coach, or is it get rid of the quarterback who literally just threw 3 interceptions against the Colts, who the Jaguars beat in their opening game? And the Colts, we have talked about where they could be a potential AFC South contender, but to throw 3 interceptions against that Colts defense, I feel like the Colts defense is their weak point, and they made the Vikings made the Colts defense literally look like the number 1 defense in the league that night.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is honestly just wildly inconsistent, and that's a difficult thing to have to deal with. But again, I just don't know, because of how much the Vikings have paid for him, if they really are ready to move on from Cousins.
Yep. But let's move on to our last woe, where is it time to worry about Drew Brees? We've seen him struggle in the first 2 games of the season. He says he's fine. But do you think we should be worried about him?
I don't know if we necessarily want to be worried about him just yet. I think it is a little bit of a transition time, but also I don't know if I want to place the entire blame on him. Obviously, Michael Thomas is injured, and Michael Thomas is his safety blanket, and he has really struggled to connect with another big receiver, which is Emmanuel Sanders. Those two they're just not clicking, him and Brees. So you could place a little bit of blame on that. I don't really understand, just what's going on with Brees. I feel like we need a few more games to really determine that for sure.
I will agree, and like I said earlier, without your number 1 receiver, it is hard, because you brought up where he has Emmanuel Sanders there as well, but they just aren't having chemistry. Thursday night with the Jaguar game, same thing happened with Gardner Minshew. DJ Chark wasn't there, and he was throwing to Chris Conley, who's the number 2, and Chris Conley was just dropping passes left and right that would have converted for a first down or a touchdown or something. He was just dropping them and just going to connect. So I really feel like for Drew Brees, without that number 1 wide receiver, he's going to struggle until he's able to build that chemistry with someone else.
I would agree with that.
All right. Just real fast, we're just going to go over this. So we're going over our prediction ratios for last week. I got 10 of mine right last week. McKay, you got 13 with the bonus. So this is a For the Fans podcast first. McKay 100% correctly predicted the Panthers versus Buccaneers game, gained the score 31-17. So, bravo, McKay. That is...
I was impressed myself. I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of shocked when I went back later, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, you told me that, because I hadn't looked at our documents and our predictions yet, and you're like, hey, I predicted this. I'm like, I literally was just saying there. I'm like, no way, and I like had to go up just to like be like, I'm like, oh dang, oh okay. So that's honestly really awesome. I can't believe that happened because like we talked about last season how we like just wanted to get like 100%. We like came close. I think like 80% of the time, like we were just getting so close to at least like one game a week, but we were off by like a point or two.
Yeah.
So to finally get it is like a really, really huge milestone achievement. But anyways, that brings our overall total where I'm saying at 20 and you're saying at 23. So you're ahead of me by 3 for the season so far.
All right. Well, I'm off to a good start, I guess.
Yep. And now we can move on to our week 3 predictions where we do have some we do have another week where we disagree on a fair amount of these, honestly.
Yeah, I would say so. All right, I'm getting the timer started for each of these.
All right.
Make sure we don't spend too much time on them. First one obviously is Dolphins and Jaguars, which we know we already know the final score. Shane and I, we had both predicted to be a Jaguars victory. You said 37-31. I said 28-21, and the final score was 28-13 with the Dolphins winning. Again, you could elaborate on this a little bit, but it was just a tough game for the Jaguars. They were just with so many starters injured and things going awry. It just was not a good game.
Yeah, I mean, our starting kicker was injured. Our starting center was injured. Our number 1 wide receiver is also injured. So that takes out your biggest weapon, your biggest protection. Gardner Minshew had... I literally counted almost every single play. He had 4 seconds or less to get rid of the ball, and his receivers were tightly covered basically the entire time, or he would scramble out of the pocket looking for somebody, and all his receivers would just still be in running their route. They would look back and see that he's in trouble. None of them would try to get back and get to where they can make a play, except for maybe one player. So, Dolphins defense was just all over him. That first half was just all Dolphins, and then the second half, the Jaguars started to come back, but it was just all for nothing at the end.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it was just a tough loss.
Yeah, I think that they can bounce back, but they're going to need to address some concerns with the rookie kicker not working out, getting the offensive line bolt up, finding chemistry with receivers again. There's a lot of things all around that need to be fixed. Dolphins, I feel like everyone's overlooked the Dolphins. Dolphins are actually looking fairly solid, even with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm lately.
We'll have to see what happens. I mean, because now they're 1-2.
Yep.
Anyway, gotta
Both
move on.
teams are
Now we're
1 and
past
2.
2 minutes.
Yep, but let's move on. Bears versus Falcons.
Okay. Let me put it to you this way. Shane, your prediction is 28-17 Falcons. Mine is 26-16 Falcons. So we both picked the Falcons to win. I will say this because, Bears fan here. The only reason that I'm going with this the Falcons technically could be 2-0 right now, just as easily as the Bears could be 0-2. But it's flip-flopped right now. Here's what I want to stress with this. We're picking the Falcons to win because it's in Atlanta. We think the Falcons are going to be really desperate for a win, especially after that embarrassing Cowboys loss. And the Bears have not been playing good teams. Now, that's not to say the Falcons are amazing, but they're not the Detroit Lions or the New York Giants. So, that being said, we have this down as a score. The only thing that makes me want to change my mind is I'm hearing that a lot of Falcons players, including like Julio Jones, for example, are injured and won't be playing. So I don't know if that could factor into it. Maybe that gives the Bears a chance, but I'm still going to go with the Falcons on this one.
I will agree with you. I would say if the injury with the Falcons is true, I don't think the Bears really have anybody that's like beat up other than maybe like one player or something.
So Leo Mack actually, like, they have to monitor him a little bit. He's got a little bit of a knee problem, but yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I was like, you guys are pretty healthy for the most part. So I think this game's going to go to whoever's healthiest, but I'm going to give the edge to the Falcons because I think they're going to be a little bit more gritty this week than what we've seen for the past 2 weeks.
I would agree. I also just don't know if this is going to be that interesting matchup. However, I will say the next one that we have to talk about is going to be an interesting matchup, and that's between the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. I feel like both these teams are pretty capable. They both got talent. They're both 2-0 right now, so obviously something's going to have to change with this game for one of them. Shane, you predicted the Bills to win 27-24. I'm going 31-28 with the Rams.
This one I would honestly say is a coin flip, and I think we both can agree with that because we both have our prediction winning by 3 points. So it's going to be a good, close game. I think that if Josh Allen has another game like he did last week, he is probably going to steal it away from the Rams.
And you say that, and I understand that Josh Allen has been putting on, he's had a really great start to this season. I don't know. It's just, for me, I just feel like the Rams defense, especially with a guy like Aaron Donald in there, he's going to make things really difficult for Josh Allen and his offensive line. I feel like he could be a little bit of an X factor in that case.
Oh, I will agree with you. I think what's going to come down to mainly is Josh Allen versus the Rams defense. I think that's what this game is going to come down to. The Rams offense, I'm not saying they're bad, but I think the main thing to highlight and the deciding factor is going to be Josh Allen, how hot is he that night, versus how hot and how strong the Rams defense comes out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good game, though. I'm excited for this one.
As am I.
All right, now let's move on to what I assume is a less exciting matchup for everybody watching. And we got the Browns versus the Washington football team. I'm saying this is boring because I literally feel like all of the Browns games this season have been, looking at it on paper, have just sounded like really, really bad, boring matchups.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the Browns played the Ravens in week 1, got slaughtered. Then they played the Bengals. It was a close scoring game, but I believe it's a close scoring game just because of how bad both teams are. So it's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, these two teams are amazing. It's more of, these two teams are bad. It's going to be a fairly high scoring game. Anyways, I'm saying 28-17. The Browns are going to take it. I think if they were able to beat out the Bengals last week, I think they'll be able to beat out Washington, who I think is personally probably the worst team in the NFL, around with the Jets as well. McKay, you're saying 23-18 Washington.
I'm just thinking that Washington's defense is going to make things very difficult for Baker Mayfield, and it may end up throwing him off. And I'm not saying that Dwayne Haskins is going to have a great game, but I think it's going to be better than Baker Mayfield's, but that's just my prediction.
Okay, I can agree with that. It's going to be a lot like what we said with the Bills and Rams, where it's going to be instead of Josh Allen versus the Rams defense, it's going to be Baker Mayfield versus the Washington defense, and it's just going to come down to who wins that battle.
I would agree.
All right, let's move on to Titans versus Vikings. This one pains me, but I'm saying the Titans are going to win it 28-17. McKay, you're having a very close game with it going 33-31 with the Titans taking it.
I'm going to say the reason that it's so close is because I feel like the Vikings are going to be desperate for their first win of the season, but I know that the Titans are not this easy team that they'll be able to steamroll. I think it'll be a close game. I feel like the Vikings are gonna really want it, but the Titans are gonna win at the end. I'll be honest, I'm gonna be cheering for the Titans on this one because that means the Vikings are 0-3, and I won't complain about that.
See, that makes sense because you're in the NFC North and you want the Vikings to be 0-3. I'm in the AFC South where I want the Titans to lose. I want them to go 2-1. That way either the Texans, the Jaguars, or the Colts could come back because, honestly, I just don't like the Titans. I don't like their fan base. I don't like their team. They're all cocky and just annoying to listen to because they don't exist until they have one good season, then they act like they're the best team in the world.
Yeah, I remember you've mentioned this.
Oh,
before.
Yeah, I know, which is why I'm not spending much time on it. Anyways, it should be an interesting game to see if either the Vikings win their first game or the Titans lose their first game.
Right, yeah.
So let's move on to our next game where we have the Raiders versus the Patriots. I'm picking the Raiders to win this one in kind of what might be a nail-biter with them winning 28-26. McKay, you're saying 27-20 with the Patriots taking it.
I'm saying that just because I feel like the Patriots are still going to just... I'm not sold on the Raiders just yet. So that's why I'm saying the Patriots are going to end up winning. But, however, I'm not willing to rule out the fact that perhaps the Raiders could rebound and show the Patriots, that they could beat them. And if that happens, it's okay with me.
See, I'm going in the opposite because we've talked about how we think the Saints were like one of the best teams in the NFL, and they didn't just like get edged out by the Raiders last week. They got beat by 10 plus points by the Raiders, and that to me is like, oh, we need to not doubt the Raiders this much. So I'm keeping it close because I think the Patriots are a good team, but I think they're going to be riding very high after that Saints win, and they're going to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a good game. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good game to watch, so sit down and honestly enjoy just a good football game.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Shane, I'm gonna duck out just really quickly for a few minutes. You want to cover just for like the next 2 games or so? I'll be right back.
I got you. Just let me know when you're back.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah. All right, so moving on, we got our next team. We got the 49ers and the New York Giants. This one's going to be an interesting matchup just because I think the 49ers are very, very banged up and the Giants are very, very bad. So it's going to be interesting in the sense of we expected a lot with like the 49ers going to the Super Bowl last season and coming into this season. We expected a lot and they just haven't produced as strong as we had hoped. And now that they have just a ton of injuries on their team, they're losing their best defensive end in Nick Bosa. Raheem Mostert's a little hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo's a little hurt. A ton of other players are a little hurt. I think the Giants might have a chance, but I'm still going to keep it close and say that the 49ers are going to win it 24-21. McKay is saying basically the same thing, 23-21, Niners taking it. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be an interesting game to watch and see how well the Niners produce without a lot of their key players or with coming back after dealing with a slew of injuries that have kind of plagued their team last season. See if they can bounce back and rebound from that. After the 49ers and the Giants, we had the Bengals versus the Eagles. And this one, I still don't believe in the Cincinnati Bengals, even with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's had a pretty decent start. I don't think it's going to be enough to get past the Philadelphia Eagles. I still think the Philadelphia Eagles are the better team on paper. So I'm personally having the Eagles win it, going 24-17. McKay is picking them 20-17. I mean, and if this happens, Bengals will start the season off at 0-3, and the Philadelphia Eagles will get their first win. So it's 2 0-2 teams going up against each other right now. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets their first win of the season, but at the same time, I don't have high hopes for this game. This is one of those games where like I feel personally you could skip over and not really miss too much unless you want to watch two teams that I think are not as interesting but have a fairly close competitive game going back and forth with each other. And the Nets game, I really want McKay to come back soon. I'm just going to highlight this game because I actually want to talk about this with him. It's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be the Texans versus Steelers, but we're going to talk about it later. And we're going to jump into Jets versus Colts. New York Jets have honestly been really bad. I would say they're probably the worst team in the NFL. I would say, if you were asking me personally, I would say it's probably the Jets, followed by Washington, followed by the Bengals. Actually, no, I would say Jets, Washington, Giants, Bengals. That's I got the bottom four, Panda. I don't know who the fifth one is as of right now, but I have the Colts kind of just sweeping the floor with them. Colts going to 2-1 after they just beat out the Minnesota Vikings. They're gonna win 27-10. McKay says something very, very similar, with the Colts winning 24-9. I think the Colts are just going to run away with this game and not really have to. They're not really going to have to deal with a super strong, super competitive New York Jets team with this game coming up. After them, we have the Panthers versus the LA Chargers in LA. So this one's going to be a matchup, a good old afternoon. I think it's our first afternoon one listed. So moving on to the afternoon games, we have the Panthers versus Chargers. I'm saying the Chargers are going to take it, even if they start Tyrod Taylor over Justin Herbert. With Christian McCaffrey injured and Panthers have already been off to a kind of rocky season, I think Robbie Anderson and Teddy Bridgewater, I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to connect with Robbie Anderson a good amount in order to keep it interesting, but I think the Chargers still going to kind of walk away with this game, winning 24-16. McKay has the game a little bit closer, but with the Chargers still taking it, going 23-18. Honestly, I feel like Chargers starting to come into their own, especially if they were to play Justin Herbert, which they might take Taylor out midway through the game if he isn't performing super well and throw Herbert in. But I think the Chargers have something in Herbert, and I think the Chargers are producing something overall in general. So I think it's going to be a very kind of one-sided matchup, but still keeping it fairly close. Running out games, McKay. After them, we have the Buccaneers versus the Denver Broncos in the Mile High Stadium, I believe. Yep, they're playing in Denver. Honestly, the Broncos. So another interesting point is that we talked about at the beginning of the episode where Blake Bortles, the former Jaguars quarterback, who went over to the LA Rams to be the backup quarterback there, and then now he's signed with the Denver Broncos to be the starter while Drew Lock is dealing with injury. I think he's going to be a player to watch, but I don't think him and this Denver Broncos team is going to be good enough to do anything to this Buccaneers team led by Tom Brady. And they got Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk. They have just so many, I feel like, very big names. Leonard Fournette's even there now. I think the Buccaneers are just kind of walk over the Broncos this game. I think the Buccaneers are going to take it, winning 28-14. McKay has them winning 28-17. So once again, very, very close, very, very close in our two predictions for it. But I think me and him both agree in the sense of the Buccaneers are going to kind of just walk over the Broncos in this game, unfortunately. I'm curious about something. Let me look something up.
Those poor Broncos.
Oh, you're back. Yeah, I think the Broncos are gonna fall to 0-3 this week, while the Buccaneers soar to 2-1.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry, I had a little bit of a call. As I was mentioning, I had to teach at the high school today with the marching band. They had their first competition of the season today, and the results just came in, and we won first place in almost everything. So
dude, nice.
It was a very exciting moment.
Nice. I did skip one game because I wanted to talk this game with you, and
okay.
I'm pretty sure you will understand why I skipped over this game until you came back. So the game I skipped over was the Houston Texans versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The reason I skipped over this game is because it's the Watt Bowl. We got J.J. Watt and the Houston Texans going against his two brothers on the Steelers, T.J. Watt and Derek Watt. And honestly, I think this is personally going to be probably my favorite game to watch this week and probably going to be the best game to watch this week.
I think it would be interesting, man, because the Steelers have got such a cool, really tight defense, but those Texans, they're
gritty and not gonna lie, the Texans haven't won a game, which sounds really interesting because I think everybody views the Texans really good, but they honestly had the hardest start, I would say, of any team to start off the season. Season opener on primetime was against the Kansas City Chiefs, against the reigning Super Bowl champions. And then the very next week, they go and face the Baltimore Ravens, who are probably the number 2 team in the NFL.
Uh-huh.
I personally just feel bad for the Texans, but I think it's going to be such a close, strong, good matchup that I'm honestly at a coin flip for who I think is going to win it personally.
I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting. The biggest thing and I can't remember if you'd already touched on this yet, is I don't feel like the Texans have a very strong offensive line, so that's why a lot of Deshaun Watson stuff he just needs to scramble and get to his receivers as fast as possible. And the Steelers, man, they got a tough defense there, so this is going to get interesting for them if you ask me.
Oh yeah, definitely. By the way, Duckmaster is chiming in because as he does when the Steelers come up, but he's applauding you for your team, for your high school teams getting first place and wins for everything.
So thanks, Duck.
So big round of applause from him. He also thinks it's going to be very, very close. He thinks the Steelers' front seven is absolutely dominant, which I can't disagree with. I think.
Oh, cannot disagree.
I feel really. Duckmaster, I feel really bad for saying this. I'm having the Texans win it 27-24 only because they're 0-2, and honestly, I really want them to win because I think that they just had like the toughest schedule I think out of every team so far, and I think that they deserve this win. But when I was making this prediction, I literally was sitting down, looking at the score, looking at these two teams. I'm like, I honestly can't. I almost put down Steelers. I'm like, I honestly can't decide who is going to win this game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a coin flip for sure.
But I'm saying 27-24 Texans. McKay, we're in agreement where it's gonna be like Texans are gonna get 27. You say the Steelers are gonna get 23. I'm saying they're gonna get 24. And Duckmaster even thinks that it's gonna go either way. So it's very interesting, and I really want to see like the clash of the Watt brothers happen so bad.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Because you gotta remember, both TJ and JJ play defense, but Derek plays on offense, so that means JJ might be able to get on his brother a little bit.
Yeah, and it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens there.
Okay, real quick, just like side banter for this. Do you think the refs are gonna let JJ and Derek go at each other a little bit more just because they're brothers?
I have no idea if they ever get the opportunity to.
Well, I mean, Derek plays Derek plays halfback, and JJ is on that front line. So unless Derek is like, I'm not messing with my brother, and just runs the opposite side of wherever JJ is the entire time.
Yeah.
But I just want to see them just like tackling each other and just having fun all around.
I think it'll be funny if that does come to that point.
Yeah, but that's gonna be such a good game. I'm so excited for this game.
Yeah, no, I am too.
All right, so I made it all the way to the Buccaneers and Broncos. Is there anything that you want to add about like any of the games that you missed out on? Like, I feel like most of them were kind of just.
Yeah, no, I got nothing for the other ones. I'm sure you probably covered it. Everything there.
Like
I went back for Texans and Steelers, though.
Yeah, the only one that I said might be interesting is Niners versus Giants, but that's because the Giants are bad and the Niners are completely banged up.
Right.
So, kind of just like a lot of filler games, I feel like, but let's move on to Lions versus Cardinals.
For this one, okay. I don't think there's going to be too much to it. I think the Lions are going to go down 0-3. Shane, your prediction is 31-21 Cardinals. Mine is 33-20 Cardinals. Cardinals are kind of just having a really good season right now. Kyler Murray's coming into his own. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. And obviously it's just working out better than whatever this Lions team is doing.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I want to say, like, the Cardinals have had an easy schedule, which I feel like they have, but they haven't. Like, their opening game was against the San Francisco 49ers, who are a division rival, and the 49ers were in the Super Bowl, so I was like, they barely pulled out of that game, but at the same time, like, there is a Super Bowl hangover, and then it is a division rival, so, like, those games usually end up closer, so I feel like we haven't really seen the 49ers go up against a tough team outside of their division yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but yeah. we'll just have to see there.
Yeah, Lions aren't tough, so I think the Cardinals are having a really easy schedule so far.
That's my point exactly. Is I just don't see it happening.
But yeah, Lions are bad.
Yeah, very bad.
Let's move on to Cowboys versus Seahawks.
Cowboys versus Seahawks. This is gonna be. Correct me if I'm. No, this is just the afternoon feature, so this should be interesting. Big talk about how the Cowboys are doing. And, if they're going to do well or not, and then of course they managed to rally against the Falcons last week. But the Seahawks have Russell Wilson. Shane, for us, this wasn't really much of a. It was a no-brainer. Let's just leave it at that. You said 37-1 Seahawks. I said 33-24 Seahawks. I know sometimes I say the Cowboys are going to win, so I hope that I jinx them. I can't in good conscience do that this time because I just know the Seahawks are going to beat them.
Yeah, I don't even blame you for not trying to do the jinx thing because, in all honesty, one, we're in a competition, just like it's a little friendly competition, but at the same time, it is hard not to pick the Seahawks over the Cowboys this week.
It's the way around it. I have to go with
Right.
I have to go Seahawks on this one.
I swear if you cause the Cowboys to win this week, man, there's going to be so much wrong in the NFL. But let's move on to our next game. We got the Packers versus the Saints.
Okay. Let's put this out there, Shane. You and I both talked about how we even almost had this prediction for the Saints to have a 15-1 season this year. And with our predictions for this game, that literally just kills our prediction there because they already lost to the Raiders. You and I both went with the Packers. I said it'd be just by 1 point, 37-36 Packers. You said 35-24. I'm actually kind of leaning more alongside like your prediction now, Shane, because I just see the Packers as just they're going to be a powerhouse for the rest of the season. Them and the Seahawks, whereas the Saints, I feel like they're regressing a little bit.
Yeah, I would say the Saints are going to regress until Michael Thomas comes back and kind of gets that chemistry with Drew Brees and allows... Because with Michael Thomas back, he's going to pull more defenders towards him, which is going to open up Drew Brees' other options for him. But against this Packers team, I just find it hard to believe the Saints are going to be able to have a super strong performance tonight, or that night.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we can kind of... I'm more excited for the Monday night football.
Okay, so like I said, the Texans and Steelers game is probably like one of the games I'm most excited for. This is the other one, and it is perfect because it's Monday night primetime football, and my goodness, it is going to be... I think this is going to kind of decide who is the number one team in the NFL. We got the Chiefs versus the Ravens. Are you there, McKay, or are you like cutting out a little bit?
You were cutting out. I couldn't hear
Oh.
you. You were talking, and all of a sudden you said something about the Ravens, and then you just died. And I was like, was he asking me a question?
Oh, my bad. But just interesting Monday night primetime matchup, Chiefs versus Ravens. McKay, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm listening.
No, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Come on. I thought you were saying you want to hear your thoughts since you were asking me the question.
Okay. Oh no.
Okay. Here's the thing, and because going off these predictions, I said 43-39. I picked the Ravens to win. The reason that I picked the Ravens to win is honestly it was a little bit more of a bold prediction, where I'm thinking, okay, the Chiefs maybe struggled a little bit against the Chargers, and I feel like the Ravens have kind of been steamrolling. all of their competition recently, I just kind of want to go with the Ravens as a bit of a bolder pick. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. See, I have an opposite take. So I didn't count the Chargers because, as we talked about before, division rival games are usually a little bit closer, and with the Chiefs and the Chargers being division rivals, I can expect it to be a little bit closer. The overtime part was scary, but the interesting thing about this game is that they've both faced one team and one team. They both faced the Houston Texans. Chiefs did it week 1, Ravens did it week 2. And just to kind of give people some clarification, the Chiefs won their game 34-20 on Thursday night primetime football to kick off the season. When the Ravens played them, So the Chiefs played the Texans at home. The Ravens played the Texans in Houston. Ravens won 33-16. So it's so hard because these scores were almost identical. The Chiefs scored 1 more point than the Ravens, but allowed the Texans to score 4 more points. So for me, I'm giving the edge to the defending Super Bowl champs, but looking at it on paper, I'm like, these teams were basically almost identical to the score of who won when they played a similar team.
Right.
And as we've seen before, the Chiefs are very much a second half team where first half they kind of gauge the other team, and then second half is when they really start to lay down the hammer and start just drilling everything in.
Well, we'll kind of need to see. I feel like this is going to be the best matchup to really keep an eye on and really just determine. I think that's going to determine a lot of the course of like the rest of the season. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's the Chiefs who end up coming out on top, it's kind of they're the kind of team from the AFC that we're thinking, okay, they're going to win it all. But if it's the Ravens, then we might be looking more at them.
Yeah, remember the Chiefs and Rams game a few years back where it was like very, very explosive, high-octane offense where everybody was like, this was the best game to watch the entire year? I think this is going to be a repeat of that. What were you saying?
I think you might be right. Oh, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Just because, is it bad that I don't care what the Super Bowl is, because I think this game might even be better than the Super Bowl.
Well, if we're doing the Chiefs and Rams game against Super Bowl, 53, then yeah.
And the interesting thing is now, so we're seeing these two teams face off in week 3. I think we both can agree that these teams are most likely going to the AFC playoffs. We could see them in a potential showdown for the AFC championship to go into the Super Bowl. So we could see this matchup again at the end of the season.
Assuming the Ravens don't choke in the postseason.
Yeah. Assuming. that was cold.
Oh, I'm right.
True. But I think this is going to be a good game, and it's prime time, so perfect time to watch everything. But that's going to wrap up our predictions for the week.
It is, and now we get to go into our For the Fun.
McKay, explain our For the Fun to everybody. You came up with this idea, so I'm letting you kind of tell everybody about it.
This is just a fun little silly idea, Shane, to kind of just gauge where we stand on if we were to build our own team. So this is a build a team with $15 where Shane and I are going to select 5 legendary names to build our team. We must spend $15 or less. So how this goes is we've got 5 quarterbacks on the board, one that's $5, one that's $4, one that's $3, 2, 1, and it goes on. We also have the same thing for running backs, wide receivers, a defensive player, and a coach. And what's going to turn into is we're going to see, first of all, what players I would pick and what players Shane would pick, and then we could kind of almost debate about whose team do we think would win.
Yeah. So I say we can get right into it. McKay, who are you going with?
Names.
What was that?
Let's go with names first. So I'll start naming off the names for the quarterbacks, and then we can go off of who we are picking. Does that make sense?
Yep. I'm just trying to also refigure my budget, make sure that I'm completely under budget for everything.
For sure. So the 5 quarterbacks that we have on our list for $5 is 6-time Super Bowl champion quarterback Tom Brady. At $4 is Joe Montana, the legendary 49ers quarterback. At $3 we have Peyton Manning. At $2 we have Brett Favre. And for just $1 we have Dan Marino, the Dolphins quarterback. Shane, who would you pick out of these 5 quarterbacks?
I'm honestly, for me, this one I feel like was the biggest no-brainer for me. I'm going with Peyton Manning. I saw what he did in Indianapolis for way too long, and for me, I think he was scarier than Tom Brady. I think he's scarier than a lot of these quarterbacks, even though they're all really good. I just really like Peyton Manning, and I really, really trust him for... I'm talking primetime Peyton Manning. I'm not talking about Denver Bronco Peyton Manning. I'm talking about Indianapolis Peyton Manning, where he just... didn't matter what the rest of the AFC South did, even if like another team went 11-5, he would always one-up everybody else in the AFC South, and he kept the Colts winning the division for like 10 years in a row or something like that.
Right. Surprise you, but I'm actually going with Dan Marino for $1.
Ooh, getting the cheap man.
I am, because specifically, I actually have a lot of respect for Dan Marino. I think he's a very talented quarterback. It's a little bit of a bummer that he never won a ring, even with as talented as a Dolphins team that he had. But for also purposes of I got to stay in budget, I believe I can get the job done right now.
Very, very nice. You know, fun fact about Dan Marino, the Jaguars actually basically retired him, and his last game... when he played against the Jaguars and retired after that last game. I think the Jaguars won like 40 or 50 something to 6.
Can't see it through the computer, but I'm rolling my eyes right now because the Jaguars.
Well, the funny thing is, it's because like we always see Dan Marino, like he is a legendary name, but like I think that was like the sign that it was time for him to retire. Like with Brett Favre, he retired and then came back, and then retired and then came back.
He was like Michael Jordan with all that, but. Let's move on.
Brett Favre didn't go and play golf or something.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, easy on Michael Jordan. Okay?
Oh no, I love and respect Michael Jordan.
Okay, our next category is the running backs. We have Cowboys running back Emmitt Smith for $5. Bears running back Walter Payton for $4. We got Lions running back Barry Sanders for $3. We got Adrian Peterson, who's still in the game, for $2. And also still in the game, we got Frank Gore for $1. Keep in mind, these are the top 5 rushers all time in the NFL. So they are on our list for that reason. Shane, who are you going with first?
You know, because I'm like going to almost top out my budget completely. I'm like trying not to, and I would be like $1 over if I don't grab one person, but I really want him. But I'm going with Barry Sanders.
All right, going with Barry Sanders.
I already know who you're going with, but go ahead and announce it to everybody.
See, not a surprise. I have his jersey inside my closet right now. I am going with Walter Payton.
Which I don't blame you. Walter Payton, I mean, that man was an amazing person on and off the field.
Absolutely.
Like, I really want to break the bank for him, but with who I want to grab, I can't make that jump.
Oh, I understand. Okay. So, going up next is our wide receivers. We have, at $5, legendary wide receiver Jerry Rice. Then we have Randy Moss for $4. Calvin Johnson for $3. We have Terrell Owens for $2. And we have Franco Harris, the Immaculate Reception dude, for $1. Shane, who are you going with?
I'm actually going to give this one to you because I'm still deciding between 2 and how I'm going to play this part out right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, I'm going big on this one. I'm spending money on Jerry Rice, man.
Oh.
That guy's good.
Oh.
I'm going with Jerry Rice for sure.
My question is... I'm torn between 2. What I'm torn between is Randy Moss or Megatron.
Yeah.
Which for me is literally just like, who can I arguably like get and just love and have them dominate? I think as much as I love Megatron, I think I'm gonna have to go with Randy Moss, which means I'm gonna have to adjust something later on down the road. But I think I'm gonna go with Randy Moss just because I feel like Peyton Manning and Randy Moss are gonna be kind of a scary connection with each other.
Right, that I could definitely see that.
All right, let's move on to defense then.
All right. We got.
We got so on defense we have Lawrence Taylor for $5, Mean Joe Green for $4, Dip Butkus for $3, Ray Lewis for $2, and Deion Sanders for $1. And I just want to like give you some premise. So you know how I said I was torn between Randy Moss and Calvin Johnson?
Yeah.
Because I took Randy Moss, I'm taking Ray Lewis now at $2. But if I had taken Calvin Johnson, I was gonna grab Mean Joe Green.
I think Mean Joe Green would actually be a really, really good pick. Right? But I'm not going to take him specifically because I have to be loyal to my Chicago Bears, so I have to go with Dick Butkus.
All right. Grabbing Dick Butkus for the defense, and we're going to round it out with coaches starting at $5. We got the legend Vince Lombardi at $5. We got Don Shula at $4. We got Bill Walsh at $3. We got Bill Belichick at $2. And we got Tom Landry at $1. McKay, I got to know who your coach is, because I think mine's pretty obvious.
You gotta go with Tom Landry, don't you? No, wait. I'm not doing your math right now. Hang on. Let's see. Are you going with Bill Walsh?
No.
You're going with Belichick.
I'm going with Belichick.
I'm actually going with Belichick as well. I could technically go with Tom Landry and stay under budget, but Bill Belichick's got 6 Super Bowl rings, and also I cannot bring myself to pick a coach who coached the Dallas Cowboys. So.
Okay, hold on. I'm also putting our total. So, like, if I had gone with the Megatron and then the Joe Green thing, I would have gone Bill Belichick, and I would perfectly capped off at $15.
Yeah, and I'm capping off right at $15.
Yeah, let's see, 5, 10. Yeah, you're right at 15. I am, I believe, $1 under budget at 14.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm $1 under budget at 14. So
you could have gone with Joe Green, and switch it up with Calvin Johnson. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, like I said, I think Ray Lewis is good enough where he's going to do the job for me.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I have Peyton Manning. So let's start with QBs. I have Peyton Manning, and you have Dan Marino. Who do you think wins the quarterback matchup there?
Probably Peyton Manning.
Like, as much as I like Dan Marino, I would honestly say I think Peyton Manning is probably going to be the obvious choice here. Oh, let me actually. I'm also looking at Duckmasters talking about like Franco, and then he also like really liked the Mean Joe Green. Sadly, I didn't grab him. I feel bad. I really wanted Joe Green too. I'm showing people like our little buying chart. That way, if they want, they can make their own. Let's move on to running back. So I got Barry Sanders, who Hall of Famer, like pretty obvious. You grabbed Walter Payton. So I'm trying to imagine Dan Marino with Walter Payton and Peyton Manning with Barry Sanders. I think Walter Payton will definitely do better than Barry Sanders, but I think your quarterback choice is going to hurt you more so right here. But I think it's going to be. I think you definitely got the better running back of the two of us.
I would say that's the biggest reason why I can use Dan Marino, who would fit well in that 80 system, because that was more about the run game back then. I feel like Walter Payton, for the most part, was pretty unstoppable.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. I think I think you like went in that old school like heavy run game, whereas like Peyton Manning, he can air out the ball if he needs to, but if he needs to hand it off, he has a very reliable bat to hand it off to.
Yeah, that I would agree.
So honestly, so far, I think both of our teams they're different, but they're both pretty strong, solid teams so far. Oh, we got a few other people. So one person, Jers, just wants to know if he should start Godwin or DJ Moore tomorrow. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say Godwin.
I was thinking I would probably lead on Godwin. Duckmaster even agrees on Godwin, um, as well. Oh, and also Duckmaster says that Franco played as a halfback.
Um,
Did he? I need to double check you now, McKay.
might be right, actually. He would know better. He's a Steelers fan. I think I was thinking of Lynn Swan. Maybe the reason I was thinking
Franco Harris, halfback, yeah.
was because of immaculate reception.
Franco Harris was halfback.
He was a halfback.
McKay.
Oh, jeez. Like you could have done it any better.
Oh, I could not. I can tell you right now.
Also, for NBA rigged, I would go with Randall Cobb.
Hey.
So Butterfingers.
Okay, yeah. So how about this? Instead of Franco Harris at wide receiver, make it Larry Fitzgerald.
Okay, sure.
I don't think that changes anything that I would do personally.
Right. In response to NBA Riggs' question as to why, I understand that like Randall Cobb hasn't like been having like an amazing season in a while, but Doug Master just chimed in too. He said Anthony Miller's got Trubisky. Not only that, Duck, but also Anthony Miller literally has a habit of not being very consistent with his catches. Literally, we make a joke sometimes as Bears fans that he has butterfingers. That's why normally I feel like we've got these new receivers that are coming up, whether it's Javon Wims or Allen Robinson. If he does get extended, obviously he's the number one. But some of these, there's also like Darnell Mooney. He's a newer player. I think he might even be a rookie. I feel like I would go with Cobb specifically, just because I feel like he would end up having he would have more yards than Miller would. It doesn't even matter. I wouldn't say at this point whether Cobb is going up against Pittsburgh's defense.
And yeah, like, and honestly, I really like having Duckmaster here because, like how I'm like an expert on the Jaguar stuff, you're the expert on the Bears stuff. Duckmaster is our expert on the Pittsburgh Steelers stuff, and he's here like every single episode. So like, if you want to know like weaknesses or like anything with like in and outs of Pittsburgh Steelers, I would say that he's probably our best person to go to for any of that.
Yeah, I would agree. But with that caps off the end of our podcast, Shane. We've gone through all of our stuff, which means that's it. That's all she wrote.
Yeah. Do you want to like just say who do you think won in our overall team thing itself?
Oh, that's right. I forgot we didn't quite finish that.
We didn't quite finish. We were like on wide receiver, which I have Randy Moss. You have Jerry Rice.
That's no
competition.
I win.
But like I said, you definitely have some advantages in some stuff, but I feel like balancing is gonna be very interesting to see. Like if we could actually have watched these guys play all together, that would be amazing.
I think it would be. I think the reason. Okay, and I'll just go on. I'll kind of just like elaborate on this a little bit. I feel like if we're going on to our defense, you picked Ray Lewis, I picked Dick Butkus. Butkus has been known to be one of the best defenders of all time. Again, he played in a different era, so it could be a little bit different than how they play in the NFL now. But it was a little more grittier back then when Butkus was playing. So I feel like he would still outdo Ray Lewis in that regard.
Oh yeah,
and then
I'll agree.
We picked the same coach, so
you know who I would say that I really wish we had here on defense, who I would have dropped so much money on. Troy Polamalu.
Oh yeah.
I would have dropped so much money for Troy Polamalu. I don't care who is on that board. He would have been the number one person I would I have to have him.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I would say our teams honestly are very evenly matched. I think it would just honestly come down to whoever executed it better that day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I might have the air game advantage just because Peyton Manning and Randy Moss would be a scary combo, and then you couldn't even leave out, like, the running back with Barry Sanders either running the ball or going out to get open. But you also have Walter Payton, who can just run over everybody, and then Jerry Rice, who is, like, the best wide receiver of all time.
It would be interesting to definitely put these two teams up against each other.
And both with, and literally just have Bill Belichick just standing at one of the ends, at just literally in the middle of the field, be like, okay, here's what both of you need to do.
Yeah,
Bill
exactly.
Belichick just starts playing chess by himself.
Yep, and he's gonna the entire time he's just gonna be standing there not smiling or anything.
But I believe that is going to conclude our podcast for this. A lot of good conversation, helped you guys out with fantasy and a bunch of other stuff. Honestly, I really like this for the fun. Maybe we could do like the same thing with like even like the current top 5 of today's NFL and see how we build our team with today's NFL players.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is like an all-time one.
Yeah, well, I would totally be down for that.
Yeah. So we're still working on Gain of Time for everybody. I need to update where it says Wednesday at 7. We're no longer streaming on Wednesday. In fact, I'm going to see if I can change it now, if it'll let me. Oh, come on. Come on. We don't have a set time yet, but we're going to work on that. But Saturdays for now, and in the future, we're going to be doing this on Saturdays just because it works best with all of our schedules. And we will catch you guys next time, I guess.
Yep, we'll see you then.